For more on what we can expect from today's presidential election, I want to bring in our guest this morning. Joining us right now is Mick Mulvaney. He's President Trump's former White House chief of staff. Mick, it's great to see you. Let's just start here. What are you hearing? What are you hearing from inside the campaign?
About the Drake equation, which is interesting. I'm hearing that it's going to be very close. The same thing you guys just talked about, been talking about all morning, is that it's going to be very, very close. I'm surprised that we're talking about how the polls are so close, because I've heard for the last 3 or 4 weeks the president doesn't have a chance. There was a poll out of Wisconsin, I guess a week ago that said Biden was up by 17 points. I think most people are now starting to realize that the polling probably doesn't have much value in determining outcomes. It may show some trends, which is interesting because it looks like the president may be trending in the right way. But I think you're going to see something that's very, very close. I would look first to Florida tonight. Florida closes 7 o'clock. Most of the state does. They'll get most of the early ballots counted in early. If the president wins Florida by a wide margin, it bears very well for him for the rest of the night. If he loses Florida, it's probably over. So it's one of those things that you could look to early tonight if you're looking for something to watch.
And what's the gut reaction of the president and those around him that you've been speaking to about Florida?
They feel very good about Florida, feel very good about Ohio as well. It's why you've seen the president spend so much time in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Minnesota. Politicians, it's usually good advice to watch what they do more than what they say. There's a reason no one really believes that Texas is in play, because Joe Biden hasn't been to Texas. If he thought he could win Texas, he'd be in Texas. The president has spent a little bit of time in Florida because he lives down there, but most of the time the candidates have been where? Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Those are the states where it really is tight. I think Florida goes to the president tonight. The question is by how much?
Take us behind the scenes in terms of what the lawyers are thinking about. The president has been very clear that in certain states he may be mounting legal campaigns to either prevent votes from being counted or to re-examine how they are counted.
Yeah, I was surprised it's getting as much attention as it does. That's ordinary course of business for every campaign. There are lawyers in every state party. When I ran for the state House of Representatives 15 years ago, we had lawyers ready in my little county down here in South Carolina. That's ordinary course of business on Election Day, and everybody knows it. Election laws are so arcane and so complex, and they vary from state to state and sometimes from county to county. It's not unusual at all to have lawyers in place. I was surprised that got a little bit of attention. Anybody who had done 30 seconds of research would know that that's not that big a deal. Not sure why anyone is paying attention to that.
How concerned are you about unrest in parts of the country?
I said last night, we had some folks over for dinner, last dinner before the election. I said, I think you're going to expect more unrest if the president wins than if he loses. I don't think that's the national narrative. That's certainly the sense that I'm getting. I still think that unrest is 1/10 of 1% of the population. I think most folks, I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. Now, granted, as soon as I say that, there'll be something large tonight, but I just don't get the feel. And I've been traveling in all of the swing states. I've been in 5 or 6 states in the last week. That's where the nation is right now. People want this to be over. They're very interested in the outcome, but I don't feel like either side is going to take to the streets if they lose tonight.
In terms of messaging, given that you've been spending time in these swing states, how do you think about the president focusing on his economic message versus what seems to have happened over the past couple of weeks, these Hunter Biden emails and the like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And what I think you're seeing there, Andrew, is a realization that there aren't any undecided voters left and haven't been for some time. The Hunter Biden message is not designed to get an undecided voter to vote for the president. It's designed to make sure that person who likes the president will absolutely get out and vote. So you go from persuasion to motivation. I think you've seen that, by the way, on both sides. The attacks on the president have gotten a little bit harsher from the Biden campaign because they're trying to fire up their base to make sure their vote. There have not been very many undecided voters in this election for a while. I think the campaigns realized that several weeks ago and have focused now on get out the vote. It's really interesting because typically in an ordinary election, the Democrats would have a much better ground game than the Republicans. This year, however, I really do think that fear about COVID has impacted the Democrats' ability to get those grassroots people out, to get them motivated, to get them working for Joe Biden, whereas the base for the president has not had that same sort of fear. It will be interesting to see if the president wins, how much that COVID narrative plays into the outcome.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.